Over the years, there have been a handful of game modes that have become forgotten, either because they were never fully added into the game, added as a bug, or were added but were meant to be a joke. These are Minecraft's forgotten game modes. But first, what is a game mode? Well, to put it simply, they are game rules that change how you play the game and affect how other game mechanics work. In Minecraft, there are 5 game modes that most people know about. These are Survival, Creative, Adventure, Spectator, and Hardcore mode.
Bread I require.
Each of these modes offers a very different experience in how they are chosen to be played. For example, in Survival, the player needs to gather resources to build and craft while staying alive by looking after their health, armor, hunger bar, and defending themselves from threats. In Adventure mode, this freedom becomes more restrictive. The player can interact with certain things like levers, buttons, and mobs, but cannot place or build blocks unless there are specific rules to let them do so. Let's start off with a game mode that combines both creative and survival. This is known as Game Mode 9, or the Invalid Game Mode, and was a Bedrock exclusive. The reason why it is called the Invalid Game Mode is because it is not even supposed to exist. This game mode is a bug that players used to be able to switch their game mode to in earlier versions if they used third-party software to modify the game files. This mode enabled players to fly as well as not take any damage, however, the health and hunger bars could still be seen as if it were survival mode. Other features include hostile mobs not attacking you, infinite durability tools, and the placement of infinite blocks. The menu is that from survival, and to craft items, the requirements still need to be met to create them. Most of the time this game mode existed, it could be accessed by changing the game mode file to Game Mode 9. Soon this command was patched, and not long after, changing the file would result in nothing happening. For a short time after Game Mode 9 was patched, however, this strange game mode could still be used if players typed in Game Mode -1. Not too long after players heard of this, Mojang would patch this too, concluding a very strange and bizarre feature that used to be in the Bedrock version of the game. Though this was not an intentional feature that was supposed to exist, this next one was certainly added into the game on purpose, transforming the game on both Java and Bedrock for a single day. For most of Minecraft's history, it has had an April Fool's update that would add or change features to the game on that certain day. Players would look forward to see what random changes would come next year to the game. In 2022, this was not an exception. However, this April Fool's joke would be unique in that it would be completely game-changing. After logging on, users would notice how the mechanics of the game would change in an enormous way. The inventory crafting process, combat, physics, and overall difficulty of the game will be changed in a way that made the game much harder to play overall, but made the game easier in some ways. This is the one block at a time snapshot, an update that would change how others would play the game, so much so that it can be considered its own game mode, even if it's not labeled as one. The most game-changing feature to this April Fool's update is the inventory changes that restrict the player to only use one block at a time. Any block can be picked up and be placed or thrown about, even Bedrock, which will actually take 10 minutes to mine, but is possible. There are many features that are changed in this update that are built around this change so that doing whatever in survival mode is still possible. In order for players to craft, they need to find a crafting table generated in the world. Once doing so, they need to place it in the ground. The surrounding blocks around the crafting table and the table itself will act as a 3x3 crafting grid that we are all familiar with. So if you wanted to craft sticks, place a block to the side of the crafting table, then the final block will need to be thrown on the table itself, which will then create the thing you want. Once dealing with these strange new mechanics, the player will be rewarded with duplicates of that crafted item. Other changes that are made is the new stackable system, but it's not for items or blocks. It's for mobs. Mobs can actually be stacked on top of the player's head by simply pressing the attack button. From there, they can be thrown and can cause damage if thrown at another mob. If you want to be extremely powerful, find an anvil. When you find one, find an enemy or someone that wronged you and just chuck it at them. This will cause them to blast off several chunks away and die instantly for almost every mob in the game. There are many other features to mention, like throwing smeltable blocks in fire or lava will result in them being smelted, chests will explode if breaking them, skeletons can spawn wearing 2 spyglasses by chance, and barrels can be worn and used as a disguise if sneaking. Overall, though this was a joke update, it completely changed the game. Though this would end up being playable, there were two modes that were cut in the very early stages of Minecraft that were planned to be added to the game alongside two other modes that we now know as Creative and Survival, which would end up being a huge part of the game and hard to imagine what it would be like without them. But the other two were less fortunate and would end up being cut and forgotten about. One of these will be named Fortress Mode. This game would work by first building a level in Creative or Survival mode with you and your friends. Then your group of friends would connect to another fortress made by another group of people. Both the world space that your group made and the world space that the other team created will be combined, creating an even bigger map. Notch mentions that it could have been used for a mode like Capture the Flag, but also mentions the possibility of some other type of game. Creating a map with friends and combining it with another map created by others offers a very wide range of possibilities and an overall great idea. There could be a large range of ideas that others will need to think about when constructing their base, such as unique defenses, traps, or even secret passageways. This mode, however, would need a lot of balancing or considerations as to not have one team gain a very significant advantage over the other. There is not a lot of information on this besides a few sentences given by Notch on a very old forum post, leaving many questions about this mode unanswered. Would there be a limited number of time that groups can work on their base before connecting with others? Is the world created from scratch, or will players need to terraform the landscape for their base? While it is unclear why this game mode never came to be, it does make sense why it was left out, which I will explain in a bit. A few threads are the only information that were ever given on these game modes. He also goes on to say that these two modes would include weapons and fighting, and possibly arrows that would have proper physics. The mention of arrows fits perfectly well with how using the arrow attack worked in earlier versions. Speaking of, the other mode that was cut was named Team Survival Mode. This basically would have been normal survival, but players are separated into multiple teams. It is not clear what the goal would be though. Keep in mind that when these two modes were being considered, Notch was still on the fence of whether survival mode needed a goal or not. Of course, he would end up adding one with the 1.0 update. Considering this is a multiplayer match, it can be assumed there would have to be some way to win. There are many different ways that competitive survival mode could have been like. Would it have been the first to kill a certain number of mobs? Maybe teams need to compete to obtain the highest score in a certain amount of time. Or what if the team that won were the first ones to find diamonds? Much like Fortress mode, there are a lot of possibilities. Even though it was unfortunate that Fortress mode and Team Survival mode never made it into the game, it makes sense why. Instead of adding the two multiplayer modes, the combination of multiplayer servers and Notch wanting to focus on the development of Survival and Creative would make these modes not only unnecessary, but also not a priority. Why have these two modes when someone else can set up a server and create the mode themselves, and even expand on it? There have been many downloadable maps and servers throughout the years that have been similar to these cut game modes. If you want to play something like Fortress mode, you can try the walls. Those that want to play something like Team Survival mode can delve into the many SMPs. I might even argue that these two modes would have been a problem to the game, especially in the long run. There is only so much time that can go into developing the game. Having two modes on top of Survival and Creative could have severely slowed down the process of all the modes together, because of how small the Mojang development team was in Minecraft's first few years. In the long run, players would likely feel tired of playing the modes and just play Survival and Creative, or even hop onto dedicated servers that could add and change the experience to keep the game from feeling stale. This would result in these two modes not having a point in existing once dedicated servers are added. Having multiplayer modes just being more of a restricted version of Survival and Creative would not work when there is already a way to replicate the experience. So those are Minecraft modes that have been forgotten over the years. I would love to hear your thoughts about these modes in the comments below. Is there any that I missed? If Minecraft would add another mode, what would you want that to be? I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure to like it. If you would like to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe. With that said, thank you for watching and have a good one.